One administrator pushed Microsoft's June update to 300 machines overnight. By the next morning, 42 of them would not start. They did not crash. They did not show an error in the traditional sense. They booted to a blue screen, the BitLocker recovery screen, demanding a 48-digit key before Windows would load. Keys that in many cases had never been saved anywhere. Keys that, without a Microsoft account to retrieve them from, simply did not exist. Microsoft's own AI support tool confirmed what those administrators already feared. If the recovery key is not saved, there is no recovery path. The only documented option is a full wipe of the drive and a clean reinstall of Windows from scratch. Every file on those machines, gone. This is a story about a security update that activated encryption on machines where it had been deliberately disabled, then locked those machines out with no path back in. The update is KB5094126. It was released on June 9, 2026. It is the largest Patch Tuesday in the program's 23-year history, and it is still installed on machines across the world right now, because the alternative, uninstalling it, re-exposes every one of those machines to 208 patched security vulnerabilities, including ones already being actively exploited in the wild. That is the trap Microsoft has put its users in, and I want to show you how it was built. Start with the scale of what KB5094126 is, because the number matters. 208 security vulnerabilities patched in a single update. Trend Micro Zero-Day Initiative researcher Dustin Childs confirmed this is the largest single Patch Tuesday in the program's 23-year history, breaking the previous record of 175 set in October 2025. Among those 208 fixes, 38 vulnerabilities rated critical, 3 publicly disclosed zero-day flaws, and at least one, see 2026-41091, in Microsoft Defender that was already being exploited in the wild at the time of release. That is the update Microsoft pushed to every supported Windows machine on June 9th. Now here is the failure it introduced. According to reporting compiled by Neowin and Bleeping Computer, corporate devices configured with local accounts, machines where BitLocker or device encryption had been explicitly disabled before the update, rebooted directly into the BitLocker recovery screen after KB5094126 installed. Because those machines were never linked to a Microsoft account, no recovery keys were automatically backed up. System administrators found themselves managing machines that were, in practical terms, bricked until a key could be retrieved from Active Directory or Azure AD, if it had been stored there at all. One administrator reported the 42 machines out of 300 that failed to boot. Another reported the update appeared to activate BitLocker on a machine where it had never been deliberately enabled, then immediately locked the device out. Multiple users posting to Microsoft's own Q&A community forum confirmed the worst. Microsoft's own AI support tool acknowledged directly that without a saved recovery key, there is no recovery path. The only resolution, in those cases, is a full operating system wipe and reinstall. Microsoft has not published a comprehensive list of known issues for KB5094126. The only problem the company has formally acknowledged is the recycle bin bug, a cosmetic issue where the deletion confirmation dialog shows an internal file identifier instead of the actual file name. The fix for that is scheduled for July 14th. The BitLocker lockout has no fix date. But the lockout is only one of 5 separate failures this update introduced. And some of the others are hitting places you would not expect. To understand why KB5094126 is causing machines to lock themselves, you need to understand what Microsoft has been doing to the Windows boot chain for the past several years, and why June 2026 was always going to be a dangerous month. Every modern Windows machine uses something called Secure Boot. It is a U5 firmware feature that verifies the software attempting to run during startup is digitally signed by a trusted authority. Secure Boot does not just check once and move on. It maintains a database of trusted certificates, digital signatures that tell the firmware which boot components are authorized. And those certificates, like any certificate, have expiry dates. The original secure boot certificates that most Windows machines rely on were issued years ago. They are now expiring. The Microsoft Corporation KEC CA 2011 expired on June 24th. The Microsoft UEFI CA 2011 for third-party bootloaders expired on June 27th. The Microsoft Windows Production PCA 2011 is set to expire on October 19, 2026. Microsoft has been rotating these certificates through Patch Tuesday updates, replacing old trust anchors with new 2023-era certificates across the install base. KB5094126 is part of that rotation. It updates the Windows Boot Manager, pushes new Secure Boot certificate data, and changes measurements stored in what is called PCR7, a component inside the Trusted Platform module that records the state of the Secure Boot environment. BitLocker uses those TPM measurements to verify that the machine has not been tampered with. When PCR7 changes, BitLocker treats the change as a potential integrity violation and demands the recovery key before it will unseal the encrypted drive. That is the mechanism. That is why installing a security update can lock you out of your own machine. But there is a second layer to the hardware failure, one that is more specific, more documented, and concentrated almost entirely on one manufacturer. And it tells you something important about the gap between Microsoft's update process and the real world it is being pushed into. The most documented hardware failure from KB5094126 centers on a detail so mundane, it is almost embarrassing. The size of a disk partition. When Windows 10 launched, the default size for the EFI system partition, the small dedicated partition at the start of a drive that holds boot components, was 100 megabytes. That was the standard at the time. Machines built and imaged during the Windows 10 era shipped with that 100 megabyte partition. It has worked fine for years. KB5094126 needs more space than that partition provides. The Secure Boot Certificate Refresh the Update is attempting to perform, writing new boot manager files and updated certificate data into the EFI partition. Fails on machines where that 100 megabyte partition is already near capacity. Windows latest reported that HP devices are disproportionately exposed because HP stores its own firmware recovery files inside the FI partition under a directory called fi/HP/deftable, which consumes space that KB5094126 needs. When the write fails, the result is error 0xC0430001, a secure boot violation. On some firmware configurations, that failed installation leaves the machine in a state where the TPM refuses to unseal the BitLocker key. The machine will not boot. The event viewer on machines that do manage to start shows a TPM dummy error reading. The Secure Boot Update failed to update Boot Manager 2023 due to the error insufficient disk space. The hardware models showing up most consistently in administrator reports are the HP EliteBook 840G10, HP ProBook 460G11, HP Engage One Pro, HP ZBook systems, and select Dell Precision laptops. Windows latest reported receiving more than 150 failure reports within 48 hours of the update's release, concentrated on those business-class machines. These are not experimental builds or consumer hobbyist rigs. They are enterprise-grade computers bought precisely for their reliability, now being sent into BitLocker recovery loops by a routine security update. Microsoft's release notes for KB5094126 contain no warning about EFI partition size. They contain no warning about HP firmware incompatibilities. They describe security improvements and quality enhancements. The failure that sent 42 machines out of 300 into an unbootable state the next morning was documented only in community forums and third-party reporting, not in anything Microsoft published before the update shipped. And the BitLocker lockout is not the only thing that broke. 4 other failures are documented in its communities, and Microsoft has acknowledged exactly none of them. Here is the full picture of what KB5094126 broke beyond the BitLocker lockout. System freezes. Users and administrators across community forums report that machines freeze within minutes of startup after installing the update, forcing hard resets. The freezes appear tied to network storage access and USB drive interaction. On some machines, the freeze pattern produces a DPC watchdog violation boot loop that only resolves by removing the update entirely. OneDrive broken in File Explorer. On domain-joined PCs with group policy applied, the OneDrive folder remains visible in File Explorer's left navigation pane, but is completely non-functional. Clicking it returns no content. The local folders and web access still work. The File Explorer integration, the way most business users access their cloud storage, is dead. Local area network access cut. Some machines report that local network access stops working entirely after the update, while internet connectivity continues normally. The LAN failure is affecting shared drives, network printers, and internal resources, the infrastructure that offices depend on to function. Business software automation broken. Microsoft has separately acknowledged that third-party applications using OL automation to control Microsoft Word or Excel, embedding Office functionality rather than launching the applications directly, fail to open Office documents after KB 5094126. The underlying cause is a change in how the Windows shell dispatches COM calls to Office components. The affected applications include dental software, accounting platforms, and medical reporting tools. These are not niche products. Dentrix and Softent serve dental offices across the United States and United Kingdom. C-Chi Pro System FX is one of the most widely used accounting platforms in North America. Neurology reporting tools used in clinical environments. These are the workstations that run healthcare and professional services businesses on a daily basis. 5 separate categories of failure. 1. Officially acknowledged, the recycle bin dialog showing an internal file identifier instead of a file name, with a fix promised for July 14th. The other 4, the BitLocker lockouts, the OneDrive failures, the LAN outages, the business software breakages, remain unaddressed in any official Microsoft documentation as of this recording. And this is where the impossible choice arrives. The administrator managing 300 machines did not make a reckless decision when they pushed KB 5094126 overnight. Installing security updates promptly is what responsible management looks like. It is what Microsoft tells every organization to do. It is what every security framework recommends. 208 patched vulnerabilities, 38 rated critical, 1 already being actively exploited in the wild. Skipping that update is not a neutral choice. It is a choice to leave known, active attack vectors open on every machine in the fleet. So here's the trap in plain terms. Install the update, risk BitLocker lockout on machines using local accounts, risk boot failure on HP and Dell enterprise hardware with legacy FI partitions, risk losing OneDrive integration on domain-joined machines, risk breaking the dental software, the accounting platform, the neurology reporting tool, uninstall the update, restore all of those systems to normal operation, and re-expose every machine to 208 patched vulnerabilities, including 1 Microsoft Defender flaw being actively exploited before the patch even shipped. There is no clean option. Microsoft has built a situation where the responsible action and the safe action are not the same thing. For the users on the wrong side of the BitLocker lockout, the calculus is grimmer still. If the machine prompted for a recovery key and the key was stored in a Microsoft account, the path forward is uncomfortable but navigable. Go to account.microsoft.com/devices, retrieve the 48-digit key, enter it once, and the machine boots. For those users, this is a bad morning, not a catastrophe. But for the machines that were running local accounts, the configurations that Microsoft has been aggressively discouraging but has not yet eliminated, the recovery key was never automatically backed up anywhere. No Microsoft account. No Azure Ad Escrow. No Active Directory entry. Microsoft's own AI confirmed what that means. The only documented resolution is a full operating system wipe and reinstall. Everything on that drive, inaccessible, the encryption that was never deliberately enabled by the user, activated silently as a side effect of the update, has made it permanently so. A dental office running Dentrix on an HP EliteBook patched overnight. That cannot open patient records the next morning because the machine is in a BitLocker recovery loop and the word automation is broken. Is not a hypothetical. It is the scenario that 5 separate failure modes from a single update make real. Microsoft's response to all of this? As of this recording, we are aware of a subset of users reporting difficulties. Engineers are reviewing telemetry data, no timeline, no fix, no acknowledgement of the BitLocker lockout in any official documentation. The honest account of this situation requires saying what is true on both sides. The secure boot certificate rotation is a real and necessary project. Certificates that secure the Windows boot chain have expiry dates, and those dates are arriving in 2026. Allowing them to expire without replacement would leave the platform running on degraded trust infrastructure. Microsoft is not wrong to rotate them. The question is execution, and the execution of KB 5094126 has been poor. The EFI partition problem is not fully Microsoft's fault in origin. The 100 megabyte default was set when Windows 10 launched years ago. Hundreds of millions of machines were built to that standard. Microsoft cannot fully predict how OM firmware behavior, FI partition occupancy, and secure boot certificate changes will interact across hardware it does not control. The PC ecosystem is diverse in ways that make a clean update transition genuinely difficult, and for the majority of users, KB 5094126 installs without incident and delivers real security value. Most machines are not HP enterprise hardware with legacy EFI partitions. Most machines are linked to Microsoft accounts with recovery keys stored automatically. Most of the 208 vulnerabilities the update patches will never be exploited against any individual user. The warning about this update should not become a claim that every Windows machine is now bricked. But 5 separate failure categories, 4 of them unacknowledged in official documentation, on the largest Patch Tuesday in 23 years. Producing an outcome where some machines are permanently inaccessible with no recovery path that is not explained away by ecosystem diversity. That is a quality control failure at a scale that the size of the release does not excuse, it amplifies. The pattern that critics are raising, that as Microsoft integrates more AI tooling into its development process, some of the manual testing discipline that catches interactions between boot chain changes and edge case configurations is being lost, is a question Microsoft has not addressed. This channel will not assert it as fact. But the question is being asked publicly by people who have spent careers managing Windows environments, and it deserves an answer. This is also the 5th time in roughly 4 years that a Patch Tuesday update has produced a BitLocker-related lockout incident. August 2022. July 2024, May 2025, April 2026, June 2026. Each time, the acknowledgement came after the update was already installed. Each time, the workaround required preparation that most users had not made. The pattern is not an argument that Microsoft is malicious. It is an argument that something in the process is not working and has not been fixed despite being identified repeatedly. Linux does not do this. A Linux system does not push mandatory monthly certificate rotations through a cumulative update model that cannot be partially applied, does not silently activate encryption on machines where it was disabled, and does not leave users choosing between a security vulnerability and a BitLocker loop. That contrast is factual, not rhetorical. And it is becoming harder to ignore with every Patch Tuesday. 1 administrator, 300 machines, 42 that would not start the next morning. Microsoft's own AI with one answer for anyone without a recovery key: wipe the drive. That is what the largest Patch Tuesday in 23 years delivered alongside its 208 security fixes. If you are running Windows right now and you have not confirmed your BitLocker recovery key, do that before anything else. Go to account.microsoft.com/devices. If your key is there, you are covered for the one-time recovery scenario. If it is not there, if your machine is running a local account, or if the key was never escrowed, find out now before an update makes that question urgent.